these excess deaths. So why are so many people dying this year when you compare it with last year? Now, I'd say something is worth investigating, wouldn't you? Like, how many of you actually think that we should start looking into this more deeply? I do. A few weeks ago, we brought you the data. The data is absolutely troubling on the significant rise in excess deaths in the UK and the stunning data in the United States. Now, the data shows that young people are dying at an alarming rate. Many of these people are from the age of 0 to 24 years old. So that's an awful number, right? We can see people, okay, over 66 years old, over 65 years old. I get it, right? Maybe there's seasonal adjustments but 0 to 24 years old? What the hell's happening here? A few weeks ago, we saw this. This is towards the end of September. We showed you this chart. Now, this is from the CDC. Okay, this is the CDC's own website. And in red X's at the top there, what you can see are these are all excess. All of the areas where there's like little plus signs above that red line that looks like a wave. Okay, all of those above that are excess. Abnormal, and it's growing. Now, if you look at the current trajectory of excess deaths in the United States, take a look at this. Now, we'll get to the UK in a second, but look at the current excess deaths. This is from this afternoon, okay? This is the CDC's own website data. So just look here as we track up, and you can see as we continue to go up this steep hill, climbing, and continuing to grow. Excess deaths the week of this ending last week, okay, the 43rd week. Look at that, astonishing. And the cumulative excess deaths in the United States from 0 to 64 years old. From 0 to 64 years old, okay? Now, if we scroll down a little bit more, and you'll see from, that's 65 plus right there, okay, that's a little bit higher. But then look at this, 0 to 24 years old. 0 to 24 years old. Astonishing. Look at that chart. I mean, it's not hard to, you sort of sit there with when I look at, like, my mouth's open when I'm looking at these data points, Well,
and that's the thing.
It's like a ski slope.
And we expect our mainstream media to why aren't they going through these numbers? Why is this? I just cannot comprehend why these people live in our society. They have kids. They have friends of their kids. Like, why are they not concerned with these numbers and talking about this on mainstream media? Like, we could potentially, I don't think we will now, because I think the narrative is starting to open up a little bit and YouTube's getting more lax on the rules. But at one point, if we talked about this very thing, we would be suspended.
And I spent this afternoon, because I had a lot of data points that I wanted to hit on. So I'm sitting there. Look, YouTube provides us with the largest possible audience. I mean, hopefully, you watching right now, I mean, we've got upwards of 30,000 people on all of our platforms combined watching right now. I mean, think about that. Like, Coldplay is putting on a concert in London, and the crowd size is 20,000, right? So there are more people watching our show right now than at a Coldplay concert. This Christmas concert coming up in London. That's crazy. And so we have a large audience on YouTube. And when I go through the terms of service and I'm looking at, okay, what are we allowed to say? Because I love Rumble and all of our Rumble watchers as well. But we are able to reach so many more people to spread this news. It's, sad but true, right? And so we've been totally deplatformed on Facebook. We've been blocked and banned and shadow banned. We can't, anything we publish on there is like no views at all, 0, because they block it. So I have to go through the terms of service on YouTube to find out what specifically are we even allowed to talk about. Now, they've adjusted their COVID guidelines. They've kind of flip-flopped on where they were last year, which we covered here on the show. And then, of course, we've now things have changed so much that we have to kind of check it on a weekly basis almost. We have to go in and see, okay, did they change this now? Can we talk about, what can we say on the vaccines? What can we say about booster shots? It's ridiculous. And I think some of this stuff is
that's become like one of my favorite hobbies. It's just that my weekly, okay, what are the rules on YouTube this week? So, yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of crazy. And then what's amazing is if you look at the election stuff, that's a sideball issue or a rabbit hole issue. But just looking at the election stuff, right? What you're allowed to talk about. Now they've just updated them this week. You can't even talk about the Brazilian election that just happened last week. Like they're all over that already. They've literally got that in there. They've got the German election. I mean, don't ask questions. Don't ask questions. So what we try to do here is provide you with the data. You make your own assessment. This is coming right from the CDC's website. Okay, these are not my opinion. These are not my data points. These are the CDC's guidelines and website data. Okay, so look at this. This is the state-by-state breakdown of this data. Just to be clear, YouTube, this is the CDC's data. So this is the cumulative, just general average, okay, of increased excess deaths. And here, that's 6%. That's a 6% here at the top. Okay, now it goes state by state. So as we scroll down here, this is the excess deaths in Alabama. That's, and look at these, 24% in Arizona increase. 13%. Jeez. Arkansas, excess deaths are 7% as of last week. Look at this one. 14% in California. And then you get some weird ones like in Colorado down 7%. Connecticut down. So then that weights the average down. So when with the beginning we showed you that 6%. But then look at these increases all across these states. Delaware, massive increases, right? The District of Columbia, oddly, really, really down for some reason this past week. And then Florida up. All of these states up, 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 up. And in the UK. So let's talk about the UK. A stunning bit of news, a new data since we last reported this. Here's the Telegraph. This Telegraph story is really eye-opening, and you should all read it. It's unfortunately a subscription service. I hate that I have to pay for some of these big publications like this, but I do because sometimes we feature them here on the show, and it's important for us to do it, and I pay for it, so you don't have to. So I'll kind of go through what this Telegraph story says. Rising non-COVID excess deaths reveal the disastrous legacy of the pandemic. And it says, when Britain first locked down in March 23, 2020, the average daily death rate from COVID was around 213, triggering understandable alarm and the ushering in of strict restrictions. Now, a similar number of unexpected deaths are occurring each day, the majority of which are not primarily caused by coronavirus. Now, I'm quoting this Telegraph piece. These are not my words. Yet there is largely silence from the government and health service, it says. Data from the Office of National Statistics, ONS, shows that in the past 6 months, there have been more excess deaths from causes other than COVID than deaths due to coronavirus for the entire year. So what is it then? Wouldn't you like to know?
Well, in that first sentence too, like it's saying, Philip, if you can pull that document back up so that I can read that first sentence.
Now a similar.
It says.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, the first one where it says the average daily death rate from COVID was around 213. Now we don't know. They're saying from COVID, but we've shown with the Freedom of Information Act that it was with COVID. So I wonder if that number is the accurate number of from or with.
With. Yeah, this is the question, right? So the report goes on. Data from the Office of National Statistics, the ONS, shows that in the past 6 months, there have been more excess deaths from causes other than COVID than deaths due to coronavirus for the entire year. Figures reveal there were 18,394 deaths due to COVID recorded this year in England and Wales. But since May, there have been 23,195 excess deaths where the primary cause was another condition. Some of those people did die with a coronavirus infection, but it was not the main reason for the death. Unbelievable. The excess deaths in the UK. Take a look at this latest data. Now, the Daily Skeptic has this put together. And these are in here in red that Will Jones has highlighted from the Daily Skeptic shows. I don't know if we have that chart, do we, or is it just on my laptop here? You can take this on my screen here, Philip. Sorry. So this excess deaths in red. These are the most recent few from the end of. From the beginning of this year. These are the 5-year averages for the weeks 1 to 8 in 2022 are affected by the COVID-19 wave in early 2021. Right. So that was the COVID wave right there. In early 2021. So what the hell is this in red? Can anyone answer me? So COVID wave came. Everyone went and did something. Governments mandated people to do stuff. You know what I'm talking about.
Can we ask the question about whether or not that's correlated with the J?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I'm implying here, right? I'm not saying it is. And I'm not saying there's a correlation.
Nope.
But the Daily Skeptic is saying there's a correlation based on some of this data. And wouldn't we like to know if there is? And this is why there should be an investigation. A new report out today from the Daily Skeptic goes into that specific data I was just showing you. Says the death crisis continues with 1,232 excess deaths, 12% above the 5-year average, registered in England and Wales in the week ending October 28th, according to the ONS. Of these, 804 of them were attributed to an underlying cause other than COVID-19, bringing the total excess non-COVID deaths since the wave began in April to 23,000, compared to the 1,200 last time. 23,000 to 1,200. So here's the most stunning data. An average of 1,564 extra deaths per week. Throughout 2020, that number was 315. Throughout 2021, that number was 1,322. Now, since May of 2022, since May of this year, 24,440 non-COVID deaths. Nobody who's in charge of the NHS or any of the health, the health secretaries are talking about this at all. I don't hear anybody at the CDC talking about this.
Where are the government, alarmists right now? Like, if it was some, the virus, they're like totally alarmed. But like these numbers that's why I was always like, it's such a farce, because there's no alarm about heart disease. There's no alarm about, alcohol-induced deaths. Like, they don't care actually about the deaths, because it's not, they can't make it alarming.
Yeah.
So, the fact that nobody is out here yelling about this is laughable.
And, the line that we've been hearing from like the BBC and others is that, there's a backlog of people that couldn't get health care, right? So you're going to see additional problems right now. And perhaps, maybe, but at what point does that line or that narrative start to not actually hold up anymore? And I think we're starting to see the line right now. I think we're starting to see the cracks in that story, especially when you have, again, when you look at the heart related deaths, that's the big one. So I get the cancer piece of this, right? I get that. But in 0 to 24-year-olds, what? Can someone explain that to me? No, you can't. So why don't we have a massive investigation? Why don't we have full transparency on this? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because the biopharmaceutical complex doesn't want us to. This story out today. Slap in the face from Pfizer. Pfizer chief, this was on an earnings call to investors, says the Pfizer chief, Borrella, says that COVID will continue to be a multi-billion-dollar franchise for Pfizer for many years to come, he says, as the firm prepares to
they refer to it as a franchise.
Yeah.
Think about that. They're calling that a franchise like it's some kind of like money maker. And they, like a McDonald's. So whether you believe like the data or whatever, but the fact that, via the information they put out, a lot of people died. And they're calling it a franchise like it's a celebratory thing. Like, we are going to still make billions. And a lot of people don't realize that 9 new billionaires were created in the pharmaceutical industry during this pandemic. And they have made record profits at this time. So it's been 100% about the money. And the fact that they call it, that's just like, that stuff infuriates me.
Yeah. And so they're going to mark this up 10,000% markup on vaccines. 10,000%. Money's good. Price hike is great. Price hike is a result of dwindling government funds for vaccine doses, they say. Oh, because the government's so now we just need to jack up the price. The uninsured population will be on the hook for the out-of-pocket costs of the shots. Pfizer has earned about $80 billion on vaccines and the antiviral drug Paxlovid.
Well, then now that they're going to mandate it, potentially, I don't know if that's moved forward, but mandate it potentially for kids going into school, who's paying for that? Are the parents, are the school boards paying for that? Like when kids have to do that, it's generally on the parents, right?
I suppose.
And their insurance?
I think it'll come through the insurance. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The company projects $102 billion in total revenue this year, while with the vaccine and its antiviral Paxlovid, more than double the company's revenue in 2019. So again, if you think they cost, according to the Daily Mail, experts have estimated that Pfizer's vaccine cost just $1.18 per dose to make. So charging $130 per dose would represent a markup of more than 10,000%, according to the Daily Mail. And of course, this idea of the no cost to Americans, vaccines costing nothing for Americans, that's about to run out. So all of this will then move towards the insurance companies. They think that's great. They think that's great. And they think that this is going to be like the seasonal flu. We're going to treat this as the seasonal flu vaccine. He called it David Denton, the CFO of Pfizer, said, I think if you look out longer term, the franchise is going to be a multi-billion-dollar franchise in the respect that this is going to be somewhat like a flu, a sustained flu, but actually more deadly than the flu. So I got to keep that, make sure we're scared about it, just to make sure that we go and get these things and all of these shots.
You know what's crazy too? Is the fact that we, the American people, we paid for the research and development on these vaccines. Okay, we paid that. They didn't have to pay for marketing because the government did it for them. So what do they have invested in making all this money? Pretty much absolutely nothing. Like we pretty much paid for that because we pay the government. So we paid for the R&D. We paid the government to market it for them. And therefore, it's like basically all profit to them.
Yeah. Oh, it's 100% profit. $100 billion of profit.
That's crazy.
Revenue. Yeah. And then, of course, they have immunity, right? They have immunity for any of this problems. And then, of course, the shadiness that they unfolded on the EU as well. 10 doses for every European citizen or every European resident. 10 doses per. That's the deal that you cut with the EU. Shouldn't we look into that? I guess not.